Well, welcome to the panel on license plate readers, bumper stickers, and vehicle fingerprinting. I'm John Padfield. I describe myself as an engineer turned state representative turned business professor. I look at technology from all sides because I've interacted with technology on all sides. I'm going to start by asking the panel to introduce themselves, and then I have some questions for the panel, and then we will open it up for audience questions. But I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Xavier and ask him to introduce himself.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming out to hear this panel. Very passionate of mine in doing privacy advocacy. I'm a proud member of the FDA and try to live these values year round. So if you're just now hearing about this panel and this track, a lot of people are very surprised to hear this kind of content at DragonCon. I know that there's organizations that try to make this stuff happen locally. And so this is a call to action to get involved. So I'm a privacy advocacy and a computer security advocate, or as a trade. So I do a lot of the large company enterprise level security. I've worked with a lot of these technologies that are being abused now in my enterprise capacity, and so understanding the capacity or their capabilities is where my specialty and where I'll be able to add to this conversation. Next, Cory.
Good afternoon. My name is Cory Rosenberger. I'm an assistant district attorney in the Conasauga Judicial Circuit here in Georgia. That is Whitfield and Murray County. That's a little bit north of here, just south of Chattanooga. I've been practicing law for a little over a decade. The first 4 years of that, I was an assistant public defender, defending indigent people charged with crimes. And then I swapped sides, and since then I've been an assistant district attorney actually prosecuting crimes. I've defended and prosecuted pretty much everything from speeding to murder. I might get a few boos, but I've used the flock system in high profile, or not high profile, but high serious crimes, aggravated assaults, armed robberies, murders, things like that. And that's where my insight will come from today. Sarah?
Hey y'all, I'm Sarah Phillips. I use she, they pronouns. I work at Fight for the Future. We're a digital rights anti-surveillance organization that does national campaigns, mostly online. My work is around abortion surveillance, free expression, and how LGBTQ youth interact with the internet. I'm from Texas and came out of reproductive justice organizing in the South. And I also make content and engage with fandom in some ways. So I'm here in two kind of capacities right now. So great to be here, and thank you for coming. I know there's so many things to go to, so I appreciate it.
Well, I'm guessing some of you are probably very familiar with automated license plate readers, and some of you are probably hearing about this possibly for the first time. So I want to very quickly just make you familiar with it, and then have some questions for the panel about them. The first automated license plate reader traces its roots back to 1972. So this is not a brand new technology, but it's a technology that has evolved a long way from where it first started. The first time that people really started catching on to there are license plate readers out there recording your travels was the early 2000s. Shortly after 9/11, a lot of money was made available to local governments, and license plate readers started going up. In particular, they were going up around mosques, they were going up around gun shows. People's movements were being tracked. And these are not people that had done anything wrong. There were no warrants involved because police didn't even know who they were looking for. It's just seems like a good idea that we ought to know everyone that goes to this mosque or everyone that goes to that gun show. So these cameras started being used for mass surveillance. That was back in the early 2000s. In 2017, a company called Flock Safety, which I will probably refer to the rest of the day as Flock Surveillance. 2017, they were a startup company here in Atlanta, Georgia. They started making the cameras that have, I refer to them as an invasive species, a flock of cameras. There are tens of thousands of them all over the country right now, and they popped up in my neighborhood practically overnight. So what is unique about these cameras, they not only get your license plate number, they also get the make and model of your car, the color of the car, distinguishing characteristics like dents, roof racks, bumper stickers. They use AI so that if someone is suspected, they don't even have to have your license plate. They just know that that car had a certain bumper sticker on it and it was a blue sedan. They can go find it. So my first question for the panel, we have seen tremendous evolution from simply reading a license plate to now fingerprinting a vehicle. I'm just curious, where do you see this going over the next couple of years as the technology continues to increase?
So one of the things I've started to see is, this interconnectedness of data, where the idea of most of the technology companies being out of, California and the West Coast had this kind of liberal idealism, and we could trust these companies to, use the technology, respectfully. However, that idea has been eroded away over time, and for privacy advocates like me have been saying, here's what is possible. All it takes is somebody willing to do it. And now that's what we're kind of seeing now, right? Is this evolution of, hey, we probably need to keep this data separate from this and have these safeguards in place. And so we're going to do that. However, the economy of surveillance and the government's desire to use that and therefore, further fund that economy has really shifted the sands quite drastically in the last couple of years. And so as we look at the future here, I've got an article that just came out from 404. Flock wants to partner with consumer dash cam company that takes trillions of images a day. So Flock's got tens of thousands of cameras now, but if everybody's dash cams now was a government spy, think how much that's going to change. Right? So this is not these are all things that if this one doesn't happen, right, that's the kind of direction that we're headed. And so being able to say, what does that mean and where do we need to stand up and say, it's too much and how do I get involved is where we're at today. So that's what we're, kind of focusing on and kind of hoping to get the energy around.
By a show of hands, how many of y'all have heard of Flock before? Okay. For those of you that don't, I can give kind of a rudimentary description of it from law enforcement side. Let's say you leave your house and go to the grocery store and you pass 3 Flock cameras associated with Flock along the way. They're each going to, record your vehicle, your license plate, the time and date and location that it went. And it takes that and it stores that information. I'm not sure how long it stores that information for, but I would imagine as long as it is commercially viable.
Just forever.
Just forever.
Yeah. And so where I see this technology going is kind of, anyone willing to pay enough can really buy everywhere you've been in your vehicle. In perpetuity. Every time you pass a Flock camera, they could probably say, this person goes to Walmart Tuesdays and Fridays. This person goes to yoga every Saturday. This person does this, which I would imagine would be quite valuable to the right buyer. From the law enforcement side, it is used a lot in identifying vehicles and suspects associated with crimes, but I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, that's for sure.
My turn for questions. How many of y'all are from Atlanta or live in Atlanta?
Atlanta area?
Yes, sure. Okay, that's good to know. I bring that up because Mapping ATL just did a map, info gather on showing how many cameras are actually in the Atlanta area, making Atlanta the most surveilled city in the country. So I think that's also I just wanted to bring that to the room considering we're in Atlanta. And also just I think Atlanta and Georgia are a microcosm of what could happen and how it will be used. I'm from Texas, so the example that I'll bring up is that a Texas cop recently used the Flock database to search for a woman who went out of state to get an abortion, used the database to track her across the country, used 83,000 cameras worth of info to find her going to her apartment across the country. And I bring that up because we're in this situation where in Texas, things that are criminalized in Texas are not criminalized elsewhere. And that is frustrating Texas state lawmakers because they feel like they should be able to prosecute people regardless if they're in Texas or not. There've been a couple of cases where our attorney general has gone after parents who took their children to gender affirming healthcare appointments in Seattle that they wouldn't be able to access in Texas. Obviously, people are leaving the state every day to access abortion care. And so from my perspective, I do want to talk about impact in terms of like coming from a state where people are leaving it and using travel to actually access things where their rights are being criminalized in the state that they're from. That is, I think, where we're going, right? Like they're creating this map that they can search, that they can find any information on. They can stake out mosques or like put a camera right outside a mosque and track every single person. They can put a camera right outside of an abortion clinic in Seattle that then helps cops in Texas and Mississippi and Alabama criminalize those people when they come back home. Like that's what I'm seeing, is that they're creating a way to criminalize people wherever they are, and also to track movements, track people as much as possible. And Atlanta is a great example of it because the number I saw was it's 124 cameras, most of them owned by Flock, per 1,000 people here in the city. So,
According to Flock, they keep the data for 30 days. I would really love to see an independent audit to know that that data is destroyed on the 31st day. Storage right now, I can go out on Amazon and buy a hard drive that works out to about 1 cent per gigabyte. And so the storage cost is so negligible, might as well call it free. And the value of that data is going to persist in perpetuity. So I would really, truly like, if any Flock employees happen to be here, really like to see you put some third-party independent test results on your website that gives anyone any reason to believe you when you say that you only maintain that data for 30 days. One other feature that Flock advertises on their website is what they call caravanning. I think that's the term they use. And what that means is if Xavier was on a suspect list, police could go out and put in his license plate number and here's everywhere that he's been. But hey, wait a minute. This other car is very frequently seen within 1 minute of him passing these cameras. Looks like these two people might know each other because they travel the same routes in close proximity. And so that is another feature sold to law enforcement. We can help you find additional suspects. What's the false positive rate on that? How many innocent people happen to be behind a criminal and now you're a suspect because you were driving too close to a criminal? Another question for our panel. There are some people that claim, well, this is a legal gray area. It's not really illegal. I would just like to hear everyone's thoughts on what is the constitutionality of this. We know what the Fourth Amendment says. The Fourth Amendment makes it very clear that people are to be secure in their houses, their papers, their effects, and that police must have a search warrant to search. And so the real pivotal issue is, does putting up tens of thousands of cameras across the country so that I can follow somebody from my computer, does that constitute a search? And I would like to hear perspectives from our panelists.
So before I jump to your question on the data retention, this is one of these that I've been, like I said, I'm on the enterprise side. And so when companies try to, figure this stuff out, I've been involved with a lot of that. And often what happens is that you have a data lake, is what we used to call it. Now we call them models, or AI models, right? Where we are now processing this data and it is transformed into something else, but yet all that data is in there and can be pulled back out. So so that is one possible way for them to eat, with an honest face, say, yes, we are keeping 30 days of this data, but we transform it, it's now something else. And that's our AI model for this product line. It's not data retention. So that's a legal gray area. And so going to, this, like, whether or not what they're doing is illegal and falls upon that is the, idea of being what is expected, expectations of privacy. And there has been a couple of different, case law on that, being able to say there is a certain level of expectation of privacy when in a public place for, things like tracking. And that is what being contested now, but is at least giving many defense lawyers the ability to say that we have in the past be able to say that this falls on the other side of that line. And this is, will continue to be litigated, but, at least the risk that hope is that we've seen a couple of cases will be able to fall onto what I consider the right side of what the history there.
So I'll piggyback a little bit. This is where I can probably contribute a good bit, is the Fourth Amendment case laws. Is you have a right to privacy. Police need a search warrant, some sort of exigent circumstance or consent. Whenever you have a reasonable expectation of privacy, what is a reasonable expectation of privacy? That is a very hotly debated topic, and it varies from state to state. It's not, this particular issue has not really been litigated much in higher courts yet. I expect that it will. From my experience, if Atlanta Police Department wanted to put a police officer on every corner and they wrote down the license plate and time of every vehicle that drove by, that would not be a very efficient use of government money. I've seen bigger wastes of government money, but that would not constitute a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights under current case law. I think the way that I've read and interpreted Georgia case law, I do believe that the Georgia Supreme Court will ultimately say that this is constitutional. That you're in a public place, you're driving your vehicle in a public place, logging that information, you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy in that place.
Yeah, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. Let's start there. I don't know that much in terms of like what is like here or there on that. But I will say one thing I wanted to talk about is that the government in many ways does have like warrantless surveillance tactics. And so this is like one of them, I feel like, in the big bucket that is warrantless surveillance that the government employs. The big example that we talk about a lot at FIGHT is the data broker loophole, which, companies that sell your data to data brokers, governments, police officers, police departments accessing your data from the data brokers. That's called the data broker loophole. And so I just wanted to bring that in, that there's many different ways that they're searching for you basically and exploiting your data without a warrant. There's also a couple of other, like FISA, which is Foreign Intelligence Service Act, the Section 702, that also employs warrantless surveillance if that has been used against people who do movement work, do activist work. There's many different ways that the government does do these things, and I think I consider FLOC one of those ways. Whether or not the case law reads that they are actually violating our rights under current case law, under current decisions, it's a question of whether or not we, like as people, want the government to be able to do these things. And there is legislation, there is like comprehensive privacy legislation that we should be talking about, and also just like, again, bringing up Atlanta, like there's a movement here against police contracts, and I want to bring that in too, because one of the ways that companies are actually able to employ this tech is because they have buy-in from police departments who have money to spend, right? And in this country, we put more and more and more money into police contracts that give them the ability to do this. So there are ways that we can interrupt this. It's the question of whether or not we want to, and we can put time, effort, organizing behind it. And also this is not an inevitability, right? These companies are choosing to do these things. The police departments are choosing to employ them and buy into them. So
I'd like to encourage everyone to write down a website, ij.org. That is the Institute for Justice. They have a lawsuit in court right now against the city of Norfolk, Virginia over flock cameras. Norfolk put up over 300 cameras, and I believe the reason that Norfolk won the lawsuit lottery is because their police chief said the quiet part out loud. After those 300 plus cameras went up, their police chief bragged in a press conference, "No one in Norfolk can go anywhere without us knowing about it." Well, yeah, we know that, but you weren't supposed to say it that way. And so the lawsuit, they won the lottery, they got the lawsuit. The city of Norfolk, as soon as the lawsuit was filed, they filed a motion to dismiss. We're not spying on anyone. This is just for public safety. So they filed a motion to dismiss, and the federal judge read their motion to dismiss and said, denied. This is a serious issue. You're not just going to say public safety and get away with everything. The Institute for Justice is citing the Carpenter case, which I believe was 2019.
2018.
18?
Yeah, 2018.
I was close. Yep. Carpenter had been convicted of robbing liquor stores, and the way he was caught, there were 4 liquor stores robbed, and police used geofencing to look at what cell phones were near these liquor stores at the time they were caught. And a lot of people would look at that and say that's just good police work. But the defense attorney said, this is, where was your warrant? Well, we don't need a warrant. That was data that we had access to. And that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. In a 5-4 decision, the United States Supreme Court ruled that was a warrantless search, therefore unconstitutional. And that the key phrase out of the majority opinion stated that the use of advanced technology for a prolonged period of time constitutes a search under the Fourth Amendment. And so using that precedent, the Institute for Justice is saying flock cameras are the same thing. The use of an advanced technology to monitor people for a prolonged period of time. That case is anticipated to go to trial in October of this year. I have spoken to one of the attorneys at Institute for Justice. He said that October is when they were hoping to get this in front of a jury. So I just encourage you to follow that one because it's going to be a fascinating one. We've got one more question for the panel here before we open to everyone else. If bumper stickers and other identifiers can now be cataloged, could constant surveillance chill how people exercise their First Amendment rights? You can imagine change of administration, no matter what side you're on. New administration comes in and, hey, I want a list of everyone that had a pro-life bumper sticker, everyone that had a pro-choice bumper sticker. The ability to quickly generate a list of people that expressed a certain opinion out of favor with the administration. Just like to hear what your thoughts are about the ramifications in particular of being able to capture bumper stickers.
Yeah, with the current situation with immigration, we have seen the abuses of trying to locate and identify people that might fit their description of needing to be removed from the country by bumper stickers, right? Is that if you have certain flags on your bumper sticker, and you can see those, the people that you're getting pulled over for that fact alone. So that is already happening. The technology, now is just there to be able to, do that at scale. And so, that, is something that is not, this could happen, but, is being used right now. The bumper stickers also can help paint a more detailed picture, right? So if we think about the biggest change in technology with AI, it's not, for me, it's not creating stuff, which is, it's a really neat way of doing it, but I'm not a creator, I'm an engineer. So I look at the data analysis aspect of it. And the biggest thing that AI brought to me and a lot of the technologies I'm in is the ability to take large data sets and being able to then, gleans very specific information out of it. It's not always perfect. It's got a very high, error rate, and it varies greatly on how you implement it. We don't have any of that oversight in place, right? Is that we have companies like Flock that are actually saying, hey, let us, our AI, figure out who the bad guys are, and we'll give you tips, right? This is a new service that Flock is now giving to the police and say, hey, we're going to let you know if somebody, acting weird based on our AI data. And you better believe that the bumper stickers that you have on your car feeds that information.
So to piggyback a little bit off of the AI, I've had AI is a pretty recent thing, and I work in a fairly rural area. But the one case that I had where the police got a suspect from AI, or with the use of an AI service, specifically facial recognition, putting it through. You probably know the name of it. It's Deep something, I think. Where they put it, they search the internet for a face.
Yeah, deepfakes.
Yeah.
Deepfakes, yeah.
Not or but
Clearview.
Clearview. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And a phrase that really stood out to me in the incident report, that most of the images from Clearview came back to one specific person. When I'm looking to prosecute a case, I'm in the back of my mind, I know that I have to prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt. And ultimately, I dismissed that it was a misdemeanor shoplifting, but I ultimately dismissed it because there were other suspects that this program also flagged. And I think AI with the use of other diligent police work is good, but by itself, I don't think AI will ever be able to, actually by itself be enough to prosecute. As far as the bumper stickers, again, kind of to go off the same thing, license plates are supposed to be, a fingerprint for a car. Bumper stickers are not. And so I think that's about all I've got for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the free expression issues here on like your freedom of expressing yourself, like right through having a bumper sticker and expecting surveillance to come of that is obviously an issue. I mean, I think I think all of us have a lot of activists have anecdotal reference of like, I wore a certain t-shirt, I got pulled over, I had something on my car, I got pulled over. Like that stuff that happens, this is like at scale, as Xavier's talking about, right? I think the other thing here is also just, I think what I really want to bring home for people is that this is about like, if you go to a protest and you bring your car, they are taking pictures and video of you going and they have you tracked to that protest. Regardless of what happens at that protest, regardless of whether or not you were involved, they have you going, right? Like I bring up the abortion example because I think it's clear cut, and the instances of people getting looped into things, one, that they didn't do, but two, that they shouldn't be criminalized for because they were in that location. That brings AOPRs into, license plates, but it's also geofencing, it's also data brokers, it's also data collection. There's a whole like ecosystem here of they just have too much information on this. And it does stifle free expression because more and more as we get used to the surveillance state, the more hesitant we are to actually go to a protest or be risky with the things that we need to do to like protest what's happening currently, because we know that they're collecting so much information. So I think in terms of free expression, it's really like in organizing circles in abortion access, we just talk about digital security a lot more. And I do think what I find encouraging is that younger and younger people are asking me about what they should be doing, how to protect themselves, etc. So while it is stifling free expression and we are more worried about surveillance, I do think it's bringing to the forefront some like ways that we should be acting in general to protect ourselves. And so I do want to bring that in a little bit. It's hard to protect yourself against license plate readers, but it's also, there are everyday actions we can take against data collection, again, for our own privacy. And so we should be thinking about those things too. But I I think it's always been true, right, that a cop could write down your information, right? It's the at scale issue that we're talking about. And that's what I worry about most. I think we've seen with facial recognition too at college protests, how that's been used to criminalize people just for being there. And we're going to see more and more of that.
I want to thank our panelists for that. I wanted to ask these questions just to kind of put things on the table and do a once over of some of the key issues, but I'd like to open up the floor now and hear from you and get your questions for our panelists. So I'm going to ask people to line up at the microphone here, and that way these are being recorded. So I'll just ask everybody to line up and speak into the microphone so we can get a good recording.
Hi, my name is Ashe. I use they, them pronouns. I live in Decatur. So I'm curious if there's been any research. I'm not sure how long Flock has been used or these kinds of mass surveillance programs. But this is just like more broken window policing. Like you're not going to catch landlords abusing their tenants. You're not going to catch employers not paying their employees overtime. So you're catching poor people doing poor people crimes. So I would ask the panel, has there been any research on the impact of these on those particular populations and that kind of police reported crime? And also my question for the ADA is why do you use this and how do you reconcile it with your community and how they feel about being constantly surveilled? Thank you.
So I'll take the second part of that. So generally, I've both prosecuted and defended crimes. A lot of times, one of the reasons that lawyers have such a bad rep is I tend to take the facts out of it, or the I guess the opinions, my own opinions included, and just look at a case. The case that I used Flock on was an armed robbery, or I didn't personally use it. The evidence was presented to me by law enforcement. It is something that is currently admissible in court, and it is evidence. But my employer is paying me to prosecute cases, and so I prosecuted it. I don't generally take the public policy to account in this specific aspect. A lot of times I'll take public policy into account when I'm speaking to victims, or witnesses or things like that. But it's kind of the adverse of that is representing, when I was a public defender, representing someone accused of heinous child crimes when the evidence is overwhelmingly that they did it.
Right,
I still have to do my job.
Right, due process is correct, but I'm fine with people being prosecuted, but people should get defended because people have due process. So I have no problem with people being defended. I'm just curious about Palestinian public perception. So people can understand.
Hi, I want to go back to the last point Sarah was making, because as someone relatively privileged, I have literally been wearing my politics on my sleeve, a pro-America, anti-Trump bumper sticker on my car, take my phone to protest, all of that, just as a way of kind of speaking out against, the intimidation attempts that I feel like, many in law enforcement have been making. Am I being stupid? Should I start looking over my shoulder, or should I continue to do that? And because I feel like I'm speaking for those who cannot or are too afraid to.
I'm never going to tell someone to stop speaking politically. I want to say that first. I think that sometimes we as privacy advocates walk that line of there's all these things out there, and also you should still keep doing the things. I mean, I'm doing abortion access work in Texas, right? And I openly talk about that. That comes with a certain risk, but it is also important. The things that I can do, though, are privacy mindset to protect the people around me, right? So I'm not talking about abortion on through messages that aren't end-to-end encrypted. There's actions you can take, and EFF has a great document that basically can go through every aspect of how to protect yourself and have a privacy mindset. And I encourage people to take a look at that, because what we're not saying is stop doing those things because you're being surveilled. What I'm saying is you are being surveilled, and the people in your community are being surveilled. So let's protect each other. when we're doing organizing work, when we're standing up for people, when you're doing political speech. Like, we should keep doing that. And I think that there are hard choices to make in the current state of America of walking that line. There are things that every person makes, choices that every person makes in this space to say, I want to be out there, it's harming me or it endangers me. Everyone has to have their own threat model on these things. But I do think there are everyday things of, even just like, I want my family to be on Signal because it's end-to-end encrypted, right? Like, not just political, but like my family, I want my mom to be on it. Like, I want everyone I know to be protected. So I'm thinking of it more as like a community care practice, like where we all do it together, I think is really important. But I don't think you should stop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to echo that. And there has been a lot, this has been my call to arms, is that, there are tangible steps that we can make and spread the word and help train people, that aren't as technical, right? Is to say, hey, here are some simple steps, based on your threat model, based on what you're worried about, and when, you can start chipping away at this. And then next thing you look around and you're the privacy advocate. You're telling other people, here's how you use Signal. Here's how you do this, right? Get the word out there. This is something that we can do as a community, right? There's great guides online. There's if you work in the library system, there's sites out there for people, getting this information into the hands. So again, as a call to arms is to take this and internalize it and get it out to the community so that we can help as many people as possible understand that we can, fight against surveillance. And you don't have to, put on a aluminum hat to do it, right? These are sensible things that real people, not just us geeks, right, but real people can do, and it has a real impact.
Also, I don't think I completely answered the first question. Was it H? You said ask for research. I just want to recommend that there's an Instagram account called Mapping ATL that's documenting some of that. So I just went forward if I wanted to.
I just want to comment on that last question. I love the question. The First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, in my opinion, are two sides of the same coin. Our right to privacy is the right for me to not share what I don't want to share. My right to free speech is my right to share what I do want to share. And those two are intertwined. And I don't care who's in office, if there is pressure about you have unacceptable views, you can't express your views, that's going to manifest in two ways: your erosion of privacy as well as your self-censorship. I don't want to get put on a list. I'm not going to express my opinion. And as soon as you don't express your opinion, everybody else is saying, well, all I'm hearing is this side. Everybody must believe this because nobody's countering it. And so you and I may disagree on a particular issue, but I still want you speaking up, because it's in all of our best interest when all of our voices are heard, rather than half the population feeling like they can't speak up. I'm proud to be on the list. I have sent FOIAs to the FBI. I own NFA registered devices. I refused a vaccination against a disease of unknown origin, and I violated curfew many times during lockdowns. I'm sure I'm on the list, and I really don't care.
I've actually seen my FBI file, so.
Yeah, seems like, the digital privacy, like the vanguard pushing that seems to have been driven a lot by like commercial marketing. In this case, we're talking about government surveillance and public safety. But do you all see those two converging at some point, or how long before Flock starts selling some of this data to data brokers beyond just police departments? And how much worse will that make things? Thanks.
So Block may not, they might still have a digital curtain or something, or iron curtain, whatever you want to say there. But it's just because they do. And there's other companies that have the similar data, right? And look at the car companies, right? The technology that goes into our cars, all the companies are all in hot water for selling that data directly to data miners and data brokers, and who then sell that to everyone else. Right, and you've got a lot of information that your car is providing. They talk about something like 25 gigabytes a day of data that your car is sending to the car manufacturer, and they're processing that data and they're selling it. And, there are, there are a couple states that have stood up and are suing and trying to stop that from happening. But it's not just Flock, right? So that data is out there, and that's where, thinking about as we just make our decisions as consumers and put our prices out there, is that if we don't want this in our cars, we have to be, in this capitalistic society, we have to be demanding for it, right? We have to say, hey, we don't want cars that, we don't want connected cars, right? I want a dumb TV. Right? I want a dumb car, right? Getting out there and figuring out how to make those happen is what we got to do.
So to piggyback off that, so Flock may not currently sell their data to commercial or to anybody else, but if you look at any corporation, any company, they eventually, safe to assume, will use every avenue possible to make the most money for themselves. And as far as I'm aware, there's not currently any sort of government protection for Flock or any of these other programs to prevent them from doing this. My other panelists can speak up, but as far as I know, there is no sort of protection like that. And I think it is also kind of ironic, the idea of taking the people. The people of the government is supposed to, look out for and protect, taking their data and selling it in order to pay to keep taking that data. It's just sort of ironic.
I will also just say that this stuff is super insecure. Government databases are hacked all the time. They have mass amounts of information. So I think that's the other thing I would say, is that we're not safeguarded against them doing these things, but also any random person who has the right tech background, has access to this stuff, because also cops will do stupid shit. That's one of the other things that I see all the time, them just insecurely text message, texting each other information. It's just you don't want to put your trust in them to be able to hold these things or hold a random line. You want them to not be able to do it at all, because they will take what opportunity they have to, one, have that information hosted insecurely, but to make profit off of it. So, yeah.
When you look at the arrest made as a result of Flock cameras, 2 of those arrests were police officers for stalking. It was out in Kansas, a police chief used Flock cameras, or used his access to Flock cameras, to look up his ex-wife and follow her 164 times. And the police station did not have a program in place for auditing the use of Flock to see who's looking up who. But this particular police chief was under investigation for something unrelated. And as they started going through looking at all of his actions, that's when they discovered, oh, and by the way, he's looked up his ex-wife 164 times. Again, not because of any suspicion of wrongdoing, but that's what ex-spouses do sometimes.
Is there any way to see what a Flock camera looks like? Is it looking at their website or something? And also any way to find out where they are located in this area?
Great question. You can go to Flock. I think it's flocksafety.com, but you can go to their website. You can see pictures of them. There is a website called Deflock Me. Deflock Me is a map that shows where cameras are located, and so you can go out and look for that.
And another website, stopflock.com. It'll have links to all the other stuff. That's the one I keep remembering, because I always Deflock or Deflock Me, right? It's I can never remember that. So Stop Flock is the one that stuck in my brain.
Okay, because I know at some point, I don't remember exactly how, I have a Ring doorbell camera at home, and that there was something there where they'd offer to make it available for access by the local PD or something.
Yeah.
I suspect
That's correct. Yeah.
fairly common too.
We're calling that the surveillance doorbell.
Yeah. That's, and that is, and that is, kind of be open the door, right? It's what keeps these companies from sharing this data? We don't have privacy laws. Right? It used to be we trusted our technology to do the right thing and say, hey, you should probably not do that really creepy thing that you just said. You know, oh wait, no, maybe you can make money. Never mind, they're going to do it, right? So yes, while the Ring doorbell cameras had a offering to police officers to be able to utilize their services again through an AI model, right? That's how they process that data. That's happening, and it will continue to happen, and that's one thing that we've got to continue to think about. How do we choose the technology that we bring into our lives, and the impact that has on the surveillance state?
Thank you.
Had it. That last question, I know what they look like because they just, in the last year, put 2 of them on the road I live in Florida, and we're in the middle of nowhere. But our road leads to a beach that's used quite often by a lot of people. Usually, as you were saying, and other people have pointed out, people that aren't going to the larger beaches that are more popular. My big question here is this. How many of you know what an auditor is and have seen like auditing videos and stuff on YouTube, catching police and county officials and other people within the governmental structure doing things that ended up costing them because they were doing wrong? Auditors, the backbone of what they do is the fact that they have the right to photograph in public or in places that are public. If they have that right, why is it wrong to have the flock cameras? I personally think the flock cameras are a horrible idea. But how can we possibly say on one side, hey, it's okay for the guys we like to catch you officials and police and other people doing wrong by using public spaces to catch you on camera doing this, but yet it's wrong for anyone else to use that same right?
Yeah, my answer to that is oversight, right? Is that, you're right. There's good ways to use technology and there's bad ways to use technology. And that's where we need to have oversight and regulation to be able to say, hey, this is what we define as privacy, right? Taking pictures in single shot, right, is used to be meaning this, but it could mean a lot more, when used in this, fashion. And so being able to get that down and figure out those different, legal situations is something where we need the data to be understood how these companies are using this. And so, can't, be able to form policy without that oversight.
I think also just that like governments and corporations aren't people. So there's like different things that we regulate corporations and governments for that we don't regulate people for. And the other thing is that like, it's again a question of scale, right? Like one person or one police officer writing down your license plate or taking a picture of it as you run by is different than them assembling a database that can always be searched and they can look back at it all the time. So I think it's a question of scale and then also just how we define governments and corporations differently, and also that they're exploiting it for profit.
Yeah. Great authority.
Yeah.
Well, remember,
Yeah,
you can't,
yeah.
this is yet again something, what I'm trying to say here is we're trying to use both sides of the coin for the same argument. It can't be wrong for this group and right for this group. Right and wrong, unfortunately, are fluid to the current
Well, I mean,
morality of a
I'd like to add
society.
one more thought on this, quoting Glenn Greenwald. We are called private citizens because we have an expectation of privacy. They are called public servants because they are public. They are paid by the public. And so I do see a distinction between the two.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing, I'll share this real quickly. I had lunch with a person yesterday from Georgia, and she was telling me about a group here in Georgia. They may be limited to one county, but they refer to themselves as watching the watchers. they are using flock cameras by going in and saying, we want all of the flock camera data on the sheriff and the deputies. And those are public vehicles. And I don't think this works in all states, but she told me this has gone to the Georgia Supreme Court a couple of years ago, and that there is case law and that information, because those are public vehicles, that has to be turned over. And so, yeah, that kind of relates to your question there. So that the cameras are collecting data on everyone. There's no law enforcement exemption on that.
Hey, all, my name is Andrew. Thank you for being here. And my first question, it's related to data subcontractors. It's kind of a two-part question, but they're interrelated. The first question is, to what extent is there interagency push-button access to these data sets, say on the local level, all the way up to the federal level? And then the second part would be, who are those data subcontractors by corporate name? Because I presume these agencies don't store and manage all this themselves. There are specific federal subcontractors that must facilitate the communication, the IP communication transfer between the agencies. And I'm just wondering what y'all know on these topics with some specifics on companies and organizations.
Some of the bigger ones are, LexisNexis, and Palantir, right? We hear there a lot. These are, because of LexisNexis is one, it's so pervasive. It's so many commercial organizations, and they also have feed into government. While Palantir is kind of more, heavy into the government, and they also have, the feed, so the Venn diagrams overlap in there. But that's where the economy plays in, the value of this data and being able to figure out ways of processing that. And plenty of studies have shown that anonymizations it can be broken, right? As often are, right? So being able to say, I'm just collecting this one car's data, this one, I'm not saying this is a person, I don't do so, it's not private data, right? And so, but we can, they say, I'll separate that out. Later on, you can easily glue that data back together. And that is where, we get into these situations that can be abused. And he's talking about some of the abuse that we're seeing in the law.
Are there any subsidiaries that fall under these larger companies that specialize in this facet of internet protocol communication between these agencies? Or is it just grouped together within different departments?
Yeah, there's different data sharing organizations and ways of that we transfer that data around. And if you want to really geeky on it, it's still batch files and file transfers. We just move the data around in big chunks. It's how generally how we share it.
Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to make a comment. When you mentioned earlier that maybe a way to fight this is with dumb cars, I think quite the opposite. I think we need smarter car technology. For example, color changing panels so that appearance recognition can't be leveraged by the companies. Or maybe if it had the ability to detect where the cameras are, then as you're passing by, flood some IR light. License plate are still mostly visible everywhere, and just when there's a camera. So I think my point is, smarter technology could help us fight the technology.
My colleague was just telling me that there's someone trying to develop like a sticker to put on the back of your car to like throw off the cameras. Like, I don't care. Like, let's figure it out. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I mean, this is like I said, it's we are recorded here, and you know how that goes, right? So, but it's call to action, right?
Yeah.
Creativity. This is where it's going to take a community to figure out how to resist this.
I have a subscriber to my YouTube channel. He put infrared lights around his license plate down in Florida, sent me a photo of what it looks like with an infrared camera at night. It worked great. July 1st of this year, the new law went into effect, making that illegal.
yeah. That's awesome.
We're down to about our last 3 or 4 minutes, so you'll be our last question.
I'm curious how the cameras are positioned height-wise. You mentioned bumper stickers and dents and things like that. Are they positioned where they can see inside vehicles, and like where to, search warrant, where does that come into play? Like seeing inside of them? And also maybe touch on like, random, cameras that any business or individual may have. And if they see inside the vehicle, how does law enforcement obtain that footage?
So, from a technology capability perspective, yes. I mean, I've seen flock cameras maybe at 10, 8 feet, 10 feet, and then higher up, and so all different levels. And so, and as technology improves, you can definitely be able to record that. And right now, flock is basically processing this data and providing different data elements to police in a like a queryable format, right? Showing me all the police cars or all the red sedans that have this or that, right? And so if they start training their AI to recognize other things, it just takes that extra step to be able to say, hey, why don't you expand this, train your AI to detect this, that, and the other things inside your car, maybe facial recognition as well. That's all it takes is somebody deciding, hey, let's take this extra step. So, you can do it anytime.
We have one more question.
I had one, but he answered it.
Oh!
It was, have any of these been documented to use facial recognition or anything like that recently? Or is it just notifying or checking cars out and all of that?
So there's a class of technology here that it's ASMR. Yeah, the automatic, this technology has come from this desire to specifically track cars because they've got that license plate. And so what we're seeing is there's these other technologies about facial recognition, just general surveillance, crossing into this technology, which used to be, scan every car's license plate and provide that to police. It seemed that for decades, that seems to have been a reasonable technology. Now that technology capability where you can do facial recognition and bumper sticker recognition and car recognition into this is where we're seeing the abuses.
So the equivalent of the joke from Top Gear where they're driving a car, they can't do 40 miles or above 40 miles an hour, the speed camera doesn't catch them. Osama bin Laden comes through. That no longer would likely work.
Thank you.
There may possibly be flock cameras available on eBay. There may have possibly been some cameras already purchased from eBay. I may have possibly seen the inside behind these cameras. They're using a 5 megapixel camera. And so the facial recognition, I don't think the current generation of flock cameras are going to be real useful unless you are standing right in front of it. And they're typically 8 to 10 feet off the ground. The question about can it look through your windows? Absolutely it can. Now, it's not a super high resolution camera, but there is absolutely nothing to prevent it from looking through a clear piece of glass. One of the things that I find a little more troubling, this is not anywhere on the Flock website, but those devices have a Bluetooth and Wi-Fi chip in them. Now, that could be entirely innocent. Bluetooth could be there for diagnostics for technicians to troubleshoot a camera that's not working. Wi-Fi could be used for aiming the camera to make sure that it's looking where it's supposed to capture license plates. But the fact that there is a Wi-Fi chip inside of it means, especially in city where cars are going slower, if you leave Wi-Fi turned on your phone, there is a potential, especially in town where cars are moving slower, that camera could be logging the IDs of phones going by if you have Wi-Fi turned on. Because what's the one thing better than knowing where every car goes? Knowing who's inside of it. And you don't need facial recognition for that when we're all carrying these on us. If they see my phone is typically associated with my car, but one day they see my phone in somebody else's car, that might be an interesting data point to record and hang on to forever because that may have commercial value someday. With that, we are out of time. I appreciate everyone coming out and spending an hour with us.